We break down the three biggest ADP movers and shakers at the running back position on this episode of the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting the way we'd like them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can also check her out on Twitter at Kate Madjuk and at Yahoo Fantasy. On today's show, we are taking a look at the biggest ADP movers at the running back position over the last month, according to DynastyLeagueFootball.com. And today, we're going to start with Isiah Pacheco, who is up 12 spots from ADP 53 all the way up to 41. Kate, why do you think we're getting this sudden rise for Pacheco?
I think we're getting this sudden rise because everybody's amped once again, finally, about the Kansas City Chiefs offense. Now, I know there was some rough patches last year. I'm not gonna front with you about that. This wasn't the Kansas City Chiefs offense that we are used to seeing. This was a defensive team that, Patrick Mahomes took what the field gave him, but didn't really have any field stretchers. There was a lot of these short targets to Rashee Rice, the signature targets to Travis Kelce, but there wasn't a whole lot of octane. Now they bring in Marquise Hollywood Brown. They bring in Xavier Worthy, who's been training camp hype, a flurry in week one. All of that is going to translate to some success for Isiah Pacheco because the more scoring opportunities that they have on this offense, the better it is. Now, Isiah Pacheco last year ranked 14th in terms of fantasy points per snap, averaged 0.87 fantasy points per touch, which actually not all that impressive. Ranked 23rd among running backs. But I think what you're kind of hoping for with Isiah Pacheco, he ranked 8th in terms of rushing attempts inside the red zone, which you expect that's going to stick. What I really think people are going to be projecting is that maybe he gets a little bit more work inside the 5 than he did. He ranked 25th in terms of goal line carries last year. That was the same number as Dameon Pierce, right? Same number as Brian Robinson, Javonte Williams. Do you think, I think that's the biggest question, because I think there will be as many opportunities inside the 5 as Andy Reid will give him. But the question is, when you're inside the 5, do you want to hand it off to Pacheco, or do you want the ball inside the hands of Patrick Mahomes? That is my biggest reservation here. But I understand the excitement.
I mean, obviously you want the ball in Patrick Mahomes, but you can't ask him to do everything. You can't ask him to touch the ball 900 times and be the playmaker on every play, right? So for me, the thing with Isiah Pacheco is I think we were always waiting for this other shoe to drop, like them to go out and sign another running back that would come in and maybe steal some work. Well, they brought back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was no threat at all to Pacheco. And that's just about it. They haven't brought anybody else in. And I think the closer and closer that we get to the season starting and the Chiefs not signing anybody, it's just more and more likely that Isiah Pacheco is going to be in for a monster workload on an offense that we expect to be much better, that we expect to score a lot of points and have a lot of goal line opportunities. He doesn't have the upside of some of the running backs that are going ahead of him, like a Kyron Williams or a Devon Achane or Travis Etienne. But when you talk about workload and volume and opportunity, it's easy to understand why people are getting back on this Isiah Pacheco hype train.
I think it's fine. And I will say, I look at Isiah Pacheco. When I watch him play football, I feel some type of way. He is so electric, and he truly runs every run like it will be his last on the face of the planet. Like, this dude plays with a lot of heart, a lot of energy that absolutely translates to the football field. And you want to see him get more work. When you look at the advanced stats, I will say I was kind of surprised because I have this vision of Isaiah Pacheco just based on watching him play that he was much more efficient than I feel like he actually was. 49th percentile in PFF rushing grade, 39th percentile in missed forced tackles per attempt, 56th percentile in yards after contact per attempt, 58th percentile PFF receiving grade, 28th percentile missed forced tackles per reception, 40th percentile yards per route run among running backs. It's kind of interesting because in my head, I have this picture of Isaiah Pacheco and the fact that, like, yes, he's not going to get 300 plus touches on an offense, but boy, he's so efficient when he does. But the advanced stats actually don't back that up as much as I thought they would. Like, it does feel like there's some sort of mismatch in terms of what you see from Isaiah
Yeah.
Pacheco, what you get on the stat sheet. And that's something that I have a hard time reconciling with when it comes to his fantasy value, because you're right, the upside is not there. And you understand the theoretical upside, but you also know that when the game's on the line, they're not putting the ball in his
No.
hands.
A couple of things. I wonder if we're going to see more cover 2 looks and 2 high safety looks because of the speed that the Chiefs have with now Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. But I don't know if teams are going to want to do that because Travis Kelce crushes teams in cover 2. But I just think we're going to see lighter and lighter boxes than what we've seen over the last couple of years because they do have the speed to stretch you vertically now. And listen, I understand the Chiefs have some concerns at the tackle spot, but their interior offensive line, Trey Smith, Joe Thuney, and then Creed Humphrey at center might be the best of the NFL. So I do think they're going to be able to run the ball inside against light boxes. The other thing I just wanted to mention really quickly, he's up to RB10 in Dynasty leagues right now, but there's a pretty significant gap in ADP between Isaiah Pacheco and Kyron Williams, who's RB9. If you look at the average draft position, Kate, 41.1 for Pacheco, 28.8 for Kyron. So there's a tier break there. And after Pacheco, you'll see guys like Jonathan Brooks, Kenneth Walker, Rashad White, all being within just a couple spots of ADP. It seems like he's the top of that tier right now. I don't see him going much higher than this. But I do think there's a potential that he could fall down a little bit. But I think right around RB10, RB11, RB12 is probably his ceiling.
Do you have any reservations about buying into his dynasty value? Because I feel like you have 2 camps. You have people that are all in on Isaiah
Yes.
Pacheco, the player. You have people that are all in on his long-term prospects with the Chiefs. But then I think you have another camp who probably have more reservations about the fact that, like, yeah, he doesn't have the draft capital. He doesn't have the contract investment. Like, what do you project long term, or is that even a part of your equation? Are you just worried about his time during his rookie contract and that's it? Because we do preach running back is like a 2-year position.
Yeah. I'm not worried about the long-term part of it here because there's just no such thing as like a long-term running back in the NFL unless you're Bijan Robinson or Jahmyr Gibbs.
Or
But
Derrick Henry.
or Derrick Henry. But what makes me
I will
nervous
be
about
rolling over in my grave
I
before that
know.
man is
I
done
know.
scoring touchdowns.
I mean, me too. Pacheco's got some pretty serious shoulders problems. He had surgeries on both of his shoulders. If I had to bet, this is probably the last year of him being like a full-time guy. I think the Chiefs are going to have to draft somebody next year when he's going into the final year of his contract. But again, it's I'm okay paying RB10 prices for a guy that I know is going to give me a lot of production for at least 1 year. Then I'll figure it out down the road.
I mean, here's the thing, Marcus. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the shoulder stuff, right? Because I do think that's an important part of the equation. We saw that, not necessarily affect things, but like it, missed some time in camp last year. Like, he's missed time. He's missed some reps, and I do think that the durability question is going to come into play with the Chiefs. But like, last year. So we're saying this is the year, right? This is his final. We're
Well,
projecting.
it's probably his final year being a top 12 dynasty running back.
Okay, then I want out. And here's the thing, Isaiah Pacheco last year didn't even return top 10 RB finish. He was the RB 15 last year in full PPR formats. Again, that was with 14 games, so like take that with a grain of salt. But the other grain of salt is that he played 14 games because he wasn't fully healthy.
Yeah, I
So
understand the concerns. I do.
I think those are all great points. And guess what? You just convinced me. I'm out. Everybody, I'm selling high on Isaiah Pacheco.
All right, let's talk about another running back who has seen his ADP jump up almost a full round over the last month. That is Saquon Barkley of the Philadelphia Eagles. We will discuss him next. This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to make sure that you have quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That is linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Are you having to turn down the volume because of all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that unnecessary screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Kate, let's talk about Saquon Barkley, who has seen his ADP jump from 31 to 24 over the last month. He is up to RB6 in Dynasty leagues, 23rd player overall. Listen, I don't understand this one. Can you explain it to me?
No. No. I have to say, Marcus, this was the one, this is the biggest surprising takeaway to me, looking at all of the risers and fallers in ADP this month. Guys, you got to help me out. Listeners, everydayers, I want to hear from you. Are you investing in Saquon Barkley? Because I think we can all paint the picture for Saquon Barkley as a top 5 running back in the league right here. You have, this offense with Kellen Moore. You've got a great rushing quarterback and Jalen Hurts, which is definitely going to open up holes, even without Jason Kelsey. Like, he's probably running behind the best offensive line that he's ever played behind in his career. But I do have to wonder if we have the blinders on a little bit, because we're looking at Saquon Barkley heading into this season. And yes, he got the contract, which you love to see. We love to follow the money. But I also have the question, like, among active running backs, he's up there in terms of total touches, 10th among active running backs with just under 1,500 career touches. And that is a lot. Ranks 11th among running backs active in the league in terms of total career rush attempts. Now, usually that might not be a kicker in redraft. You don't care. But when I'm looking at the dynasty landscape, when I'm looking at the fact that this is a player that is 27 years old, with that kind of mileage, and that kind of mileage, by the way, having also missed a significant chunk of time due to the torn ACL, like, all of these things scare me.
As they should. He's got a very significant injury history. Over the last 4 years, he's averaged exactly 4.0 yards per carry, which I think that's going to go way up because he's going to be playing behind a better offensive line in Philadelphia with more weapons. I think that's just naturally going to go up because of the situation. But I do wonder, like, is the home run speed there? Is he going to be somebody who can rip off 40, 50-yard runs the way he did as a rookie? I kind of doubt it. I also worry about the reception total. Jalen Hurts typically does not throw a ton of passes to the running backs. Now, maybe that changes in a Kellen Moore offense, but you're asking Jalen Hurts, a mobile quarterback, to throw more dump offs. It's probably pretty unlikely. And then there's just a touchdown potential or the upside. We saw Jalen Hurts each of the last 3 years score double-digit rushing touchdowns because of the tush push. I think that'll get scaled back a little bit this year. But if they're inside the 2-yard line, like, it's Jalen Hurts that's going to be getting the rock, not Saquon Barkley. And it makes sense. Like, it just doesn't put a lot of wear and tear on Jalen Hurts to do the tush push, right? But it does put a lot of wear and tear on Barkley to come crashing downhill, with at linebackers at a ridiculous speed. So in order to preserve Barkley through this big contract that Howie Roseman gave him, they're probably going to want to be fairly cautious about their way they're using him. Use him more between the 20s, and once they get in the red zone, maybe limit his touches. I like Saquon Barkley for fantasy this year. I do. I don't like him at RB6 prices, and I don't like him at the end of the first round and the beginning of the second round in ESPN redraft leagues. Like, that to me is bonkers. But if you can get him as a high-end RB2 or something like that, that's appealing. RB6 is not appealing to me at all.
RB6 is not appealing. And I do think that this is kind of RB6 feels like the point of the start of the RB dead zone. And I think it's especially potent. Like, we talk about the RB dead zone all the time. I think the RB dead zone in Dynasty is magnified tenfold. I hate the running backs in this range. Somebody's going to have to draft Saquon Barkley. Do I think it should be RB6? Because no, at this point, if I have Saquon Barkley and I know I can project him for a big 2024, but like, if you can take Saquon Barkley and turn him into a Jonathan Brooks, one of these young running backs, a Trey Benson, who I absolutely love. Like, if I can start breaking him down into some younger assets that maybe don't have as much firepower here in year one, I'm gonna do that every single day of the week. I'm gonna name Marcus. I want to just do this little exercise with you. So Saquon Barkley, we are projecting an increase in efficiency, but I just want to name a few players that had more fantasy points scored per snap in 2023.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Jerome Ford.
Oh my gosh.
Ty Chandler.
Oh, this is getting worse.
Austin Eckler, who's again, Austin Eckler,
washed.
but like very disappointing season for Austin Eckler. Zach Moss.
Yeah. Well, come on.
Hey, Samaje Perine.
That one's surprising. Yeah. Yeah.
Ezekiel Elliott.
Cowboy great Ezekiel Elliott.
Cowboy, all-time Cowboy Ezekiel Elliott. Yes, like I do think that yes, Saquon Barkley, we are going to project, and I only point that out because yes, he is going to play a ton of snaps. There's not a ton of competition in that backfield, but he also played a ton of snaps last year and didn't score all that much with them. Yes, can we expect an increase in efficiency? 100%, but RB6 for an age 27 running back who's already like, here's the problem with Saquon Barkley, especially in terms of projecting how he's going to age and how his game is going to age. He's always been a boom bust guy, right?
Always,
like he either gets stuffed at the line or he takes it for 40 yards. And there's not a ton of in between. Like, you get the balance of efficiency because of these breakaway runs with Saquon Barkley. But year over year, he gets stuffed a million times at the line. It's just that the potential for him to break one off is much more significant than that of other running backs. So when you take away some of the speed, take away some of the athleticism that just comes with the aging process, I don't think Saquon Barkley's game is going to age particularly
Nope.
well. He's not like James Conner, for instance, who like plays with a lot of strength and physicality. Like, if you're taking good care of your body, that might age a little bit better than a guy whose game has kind of hinged on this breakaway run ability.
Last thing I want to mention, if you're looking at Saquon Barkley compared to other players in your dynasty league, these are some of the other non-running backs that are going directly after him. Rome Odunze, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, DK Metcalf, Zay Flowers, Tank Dell. There's a lot of really good young players that you are passing up for hopefully 2 years of really good running back play out of Saquon Barkley. So I understand the appeal. Maybe there's a 5% chance that it's this Christian McCaffrey phenomenon again in Philadelphia. But I would not bet on that. Let's talk about another running back, Kate, that switched teams this offseason. Let's talk about Josh Jacobs, a former All-Pro running back signing with the Packers. Is his dynasty value going up or down? We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Listen, I love sports. I love them so much that I never want them to stop. My favorite thing at the end of a long day is sitting in my recliner, turning on my multiple TVs, and just consuming copious amounts of sports. I love it so much. But unfortunately, with the playoffs now done in the NBA and in the NHL, the sports just aren't sporting the way we'd like them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all their customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. All you have to do is head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. Everydayers, on tomorrow's show, we're going to be looking at the wide receivers that had the biggest change in ADP over the last 30 days, so make sure you tune in for that. But Kate, let's talk about Josh Jacobs here, the former All-Pro running back of the Raiders who signed with the Packers this offseason. I know a lot of people are excited, but is his ADP going up or down?
It's going down, baby. And this is kind of the energy that I was expecting people to have with Saquon Barkley, albeit like the situation's different. You have Josh Jacobs heading into this Packers offense, which is an ascending one. So like you look at that, okay, check. Could see volume, maybe check, but I don't think there are any sorts of guarantees when it comes to Josh Jacobs and his potential workload. We already know LaFleur likes to spread the ball around and kind of utilize a multiple running back system. He already said as much in regards to Josh Jacobs and his role in the Packers. And then again, when it comes to it, I have to say he was one of the most shocking contract surprises for me this offseason with just how much he got from the Green Bay Packers, because he had an absolutely disastrous 2023 campaign. There were 25 running backs who had 200 or more carries in the regular season last year. Josh Jacobs was one of them. I want to go through his stats, and I'm going to tell you where he ranked among those 25 running backs. 70.1 PFF rushing grade. That ranked 23rd among those 25 running backs. 3.5 yards per carry. That ranked dead last. 2.35 yards after contact per attempt. Dead last. Not enough carries of 10 plus yards. He ranked dead last in carries of 10 or plus yards. 32.2 PFF elusive grading. That also ranked 25th among all those running backs. So dead last in 4 of those 5 advanced stats metrics that I just outlined for you. It was not pretty. So honestly, like looking at the contract that he received, kind of surprising. And I think the dynasty managers are spot on seeing right through it.
So I have a lot of respect for Josh Jacobs. This is somebody who will play through injuries. He's tough. He's physical. we saw in 2022, he led the NFL in rushing yards and yards from scrimmage on a bad Raiders team. Typically, the running backs that lead the NFL in rushing yards and scrimmage yards are like on really, really good teams where they're just getting a bunch of carries late in games. Wasn't the case for Josh Jacobs. He was having to do it all in the first 3 quarters of these games. I think he is a good player. Unfortunately, he has this knee problem that always needs to be monitored. You can't overwork him in practice. He's got some bad shoulders, and you saw this year. He had a couple of shoulder problems where he was dodging contact a little bit, trying to preserve his body, knowing that he was going to be a free agent. He also had a foot injury late in the year. There became a point at the end of the season where there was like 4 games left, I believe, Kate, and the Raiders were like, just go sit. It's okay. We're going to shut you down. And there's truth that he needed to get healthy. But there's also some case that like they wanted just to see Zamir White, who they thought was maybe the better running back at that point, the guy that was a little bit more explosive, that could hit home run plays. So the Raiders really had no interest in re-signing Josh Jacobs, and that's usually a tell for me. Like if your former team is like, you know what, we're good, it makes me nervous. It also makes me nervous that Marshawn Lloyd, who they drafted in the 3rd round this year from USC, continues to get a lot of work in some of these offseason workouts. They brought back A.J. Dillon. They have 15 million receivers that they're going to be throwing the ball to, including multiple tight ends. I like Josh Jacobs, but I don't like where he was being drafted. Now he's down to RB 16. That's more palatable, but I still like somebody like Ramondre Stevenson more than I do Josh Jacobs.
I can get Trey Ben. That's a range where Trey Benson is currently being drafted. If my question, like, there isn't a, you could ask me 100 times, and I'll tell you 100 times, I'll take Trey Benson over Josh Jacobs even in a win now situation, because I don't know that Josh Jacobs, even in this season, is going to yield as much firepower as you would hope. Another point I want to make, yes, the contract sounds really intriguing, right? 4 years, $48 million with the Green Bay Packers, got a $12.5 million signing bonus. Like, it sounds really good on paper. But then when you look at the way that the contract is structured, it's really a 1-year deal. And
I'm glad you're pointing this out. Yes.
It's become more obvious, I think, as I'm just like, every time I look at Josh Jacobs' contract structure, it gets me a little bit more like, ugh. He's due a almost $6 million roster bonus here at the start of the 2025 year, which, that's a decent amount of money, right? Like, but they could save a whole lot more. If this year doesn't pan out, this could be Josh Jacobs's last hurrah, right? Like, we've seen this kind of time and time again. Dalvin Cook, like, just kind of hit the wall and then floated around as a free agent. Maybe we'll see him sign somewhere, but probably not. Ezekiel Elliott floated around and then landed in, an amazing situation back with his Cowboys. But like,
Thanks for reminding me. Appreciate it.
I
Yep.
I do worry though that like this is going to be the last year we see from Josh Jacobs, and then we're going to see this precipitous drop off. Liken it to a Austin Eckler, who just last year was being valued as like a top 10 dynasty running back. Like, and now you couldn't pay him to get him off your roster. Like,
I mean, I think Dalvin Cook is another one. Dalvin Cook was a top 10 running back until he wasn't. Like, yeah, it happened fast. One last thing I want to say on Jacobs. I think there's a good chance, Kate, that he has an awesome year. And it's like 1,300 total yards, and it's double-digit touchdowns. And the Packers still don't decide to bring him back, right? I think they're viewing this as, we have Jordan Love on a very cheap contract now. They signed him to a mini extension last year. They have all these receivers on a cheap deal. We can pay a running back for a year, and then let's give this backfield to Marshawn Lloyd and then whoever else we draft. So again, I think there's a possibility that even if this goes extremely well, the Packers are out on Josh Jacobs in 2025. And then we're on Josh Jacobs' 3rd team in 3 years. So I understand the appeal, RB 16, 70th overall. But again, this is the running back dead zone that I just don't want to participate in.
Here's the thing. I think I'm going to name 2 running backs that I think are going to give you similar. No, I'll name you 3 running backs that I think could have similar seasons to Josh Jacobs, right? That you can get at RB 30 or less. I'm talking James Conner. I'm talking Zach Moss. And I'm talking Aaron Jones. Like, I think all 3 of these guys could post very similar seasons to Josh Jacobs in 2023 or 2024. And I can get them a lot later. There is no bigger landmine in dynasty startup drafts than Josh Jacobs right now. I am sorry. I am out.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. Again, every day, as we will be back on Wednesday to break down the wide receivers with the biggest ADP changes. So make sure you tune in for that. Go check out Kate on Twitter at Kate Majuk. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Go download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.